Camera speed.
Sound production.
And action!
Once in a lifetime, an amazing opportunity may occur, where in the strangest of odds, you find yourself in an extraordinary situation. A situation that'll see you ascend into greatness. In 1988, a young actor called John Newton found himself in such a situation, where by a circumstantial chain of events, he found himself cast as Superboy, for a new upcoming Superboy TV series, of which was produced by father and son producing team Alexander and Delia Solkind, who previously produced the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. This was a big deal, not just for the actor playing the part, but for the pop cultural landscape in general, as John Newton was the first actor to don the cape since the great Christopher Reeve. Suddenly, Newton was a hero for the small screen, the new face of a legend, the boy of steel of a modern age. But then he wasn't.
"23-year-old John Newton played the dual roles of Superboy and Clark Kent during the entire first year of production. But apparently, going into the second year of production of Superboy, producers had trouble reaching a contract agreement with John Newton, and so they went searching for a new Superboy. Well, meet the new Superboy, 29-year-old Gerard Christopher. He looks a lot like the old Superboy, doesn't he?
For the longest time, there have been all sorts of gossip, rumour, and general online speculation and tittle-tattle as to why John Newton's time as Superboy abruptly came to an end after Season 1. Well, joining me on the show today is Newton himself, as he speaks of his time on the show and the true events that led to his departure, as he speaks of that time when he became Superboy. So join me and John as we all go on this journey together of true fascinating discovery as we learn about John Newton's time as Superboy from the man himself. So let's have a conversation with John Newton.
Looks like any other 19-year-old college student. Now, the superhero of the 90s is here on Earth. Don't mess with Superboy.
John Newton starred in Superboy for a total of 26 episodes. To put this into perspective, that's 26 adventures with Newton under the red cape and boots, with his tenure being broadcast from October 8th, 1988 to May 27th, 1989, with this unique chapter in the Man of Steel's history being sandwiched in between the as-mentioned Christopher Reeve Superman movies and Lois and Clark The New Adventures of Superman. Now, a popular belief that led to Newton's departure from the show was at the time of filming, he found himself embroiled in a DUI controversy. In fact, this claim can be found at several information sources. I myself even mentioned this in my video 10 Things You Didn't Know About the Superboy TV show. However, Newton himself reached out to me and told me that this story wasn't true. It was an online falsehood that then found its way published into a Superman book, where the rampancy of this rumour took off from there. Newton wanted to talk with me, as well as all the fans out there, about the real reasons that he left the show. So I suggested, why not tell us the whole story? Your time and experiences with Superboy from start to finish, you know, the whole mutton caboodle. So here it is, from the mouth of Superboy himself, John Newton, and his experiences as Superboy.
Hello, this is John Newton, formerly John Hames Newton. Just wanted to share a little bit about Superboy and some fun facts and why I left the show. So it's 2025 and gosh, it's been 36 years. My math isn't great. It's been a long time. So how I first got the job was I was living in New York City. I just finished a 2-year acting program, and we weren't allowed to audition for anything. But I'd finished it, and I was heading the next day to North Carolina for a family reunion. And so I'm there in North Carolina at the beach, and I think, well, I'll just go see what the Wilmington Studios is about, and I'll see what's going on, if anything. And so I drive 2 hours, and when I get there, I go to the casting office. It was the Finn Cannons, I believe. And I said, hey, I'm in from New York. I'm willing to work as a local hire. Is there anything going on? And they said, well, Lynn Stallmaster will be here tomorrow. He's casting some of the smaller roles for Weekend at Bernie's. You're welcome to come back. And I was like, well, that'd be great. So I come back the next day, and I'm sitting there across from Lynn Stallmaster, who was a really big deal. I mean, he cast Superman. I mean, he cast a lot of great movies back then in the 80s and 70s. And so he gives me the material, and I read for one of the parts. I don't remember what it was, maybe a lifeguard. And he pauses for a moment, and he goes, would you be interested in doing a series? And I go, yeah. And so he goes, well, here's the thing. We've been looking for a while. We've seen, I think he said thousands of people. I don't know if that's actually true. But he said we've seen a lot of people. And we're looking for this young Clark Kent Superboy. And I'm like, okay. So he gives me some material, and I say, well, can I have a minute with this, And so I went out into the waiting area, and I read through the material a little bit and did a little preparation. And so I read for him, and he pauses again, and he goes, I think you might be right for this. And I go, okay, great. I'm trying to be casual. Meanwhile, I'm super excited, right? And so he gets on the phone, I think in front of me, and he's calling somebody in Florida. And he says, I think I found somebody, ... I don't even know. And it's all kind of a blur, right? It's been a long time also. And so long story short, I vaguely remember they flew me, or I went back to New York City to the DC Comics offices, the DC offices, and they had a Superman costume there, Chris Reeves costume from Superman 2. So I'm putting this on. And this is like my first job. I mean, I'm super excited. I did some, Norwegian Cruise Line commercial and a Levi's 501 campaign, but I hadn't really worked. And so I'm like, this is like very cool. And so I read as Clark Kent, and I think these auditions are probably on the DVD bonus material for the series. I don't know. I can't imagine watching it. It would be too painful. But anyway, so can't remember what happened, but I ended up getting the job. And I think within a week I'm in Florida, doing pre-production, getting full body molds, hair dyed, contact lenses, putting the flying rig on and practicing that, and the effects people are there. And anyway, we're shooting. We're off to the races doing this series in Florida, and I'm super, super excited. And the first scripts were some of them weren't great. I think we shelved, when I say shelved, we put on hold 2 or 3 episodes that we actually filmed, but they were pretty bad. And so they waited till the end of that 13 episodes to air those. One was called Bird Woman of the Swamps. Do I need to say anything else? Not to blame the material. I mean, a poor plumber blames his tools. I was finding my own, and I felt I got better as things went on, and the scripts got better. We got better. But I remember some of the first episodes, like when you watch the opening sequence, and it's just me flying over like the ocean and a highway, I think that was under construction. They'd rented a helicopter with like a gyro camera, and it was pretty fancy, and so they thought, we'll use it for whatever we can. So they filmed like that, and so that's me flying. This is what I used to do, things like this, so that I could feel like I was actually affecting the direction I was going, so it didn't seem random. And by the way, I took pilot flying lessons. I wanted to get a feel for the physics of flight. I felt like it would help me with the character, and I had a lot of martial art training, so that helped with my balance, and I was able to settle into the flying. It's not as easy as it looks, I promise you, because you have to have your center of gravity just right, and in order to land on your feet, you have to subtly bring your weight toward your center of gravity down a little bit, so that your feet and legs come down, and you have to do it in a way that doesn't look like you're trying to do it. It took a little practice, but I think I did okay. So the opening, it's like just really boring opening, but I think after a few episodes they redid the opening. But the point is this: so I'm watching the opening, I'm going, that's a rental car. So they used rental cars. This is terrible. They use rental cars as the cop cars sometimes. I don't even know where the stunt people weren't even on set, I think, for this day, because I remember this day, because they put the light bar and the the magnet on the doors that says police. And so they're driving these cars, and I think there were extras driving the cars. And there's one scene, and they kept it. They used it in the opening, where this car comes around the curve, and he oversteers, and he runs right into a light post. He crashes the cop car in the scene, and it's in the opening of the show. And that was a rental car. I'm just saying, I hope I don't get anyone in trouble. It's been enough time. But anyway, so we got better. The show got better. After the second pickup, we did 13 more episodes. Revenge of the Alien, Part 1 and 2. It was definitely getting better. Stuart Whitman was on for the first season. But what was the guy's name from George Shakiris? I don't know why I couldn't remember his name. And Michael J. Pollard, Mixes-Pitalik. So we had some fun episodes, good stuff, and it was happening. But there was some issues that I had. And some of the issues I had where I almost died 3 times. One was the flying effects guys were really good, top notch. I mean, they did Who Framed Roger Rabbit. They did a lot of stuff. And they had to go back to England for a funeral. I didn't even realize this. I'm sitting here on set and doing a flying thing. Well, there's these ropes that they would use that would be connected to these pulleys that were connected to the wires that were attached to my harness. Well, there's counterweights and all this. It's a little complicated, and the crane is like 70 feet tall. It's a huge crane. And so they let go of the ropes, these grips who were doing the flying effects, because they didn't really know how to do it. And so I go shooting up out of frame, and then I come back down with my body weight. In the physics of it, these 1.2 millimeter wires, I don't know why they didn't snap, because the force that I came down with far exceeded the safety for those wires. And I would have dropped 60 feet or more, and I would have died for sure. Another time that same week, when the flying effects guys were out of town, they flew me like left to right, like, you know, pretty fast, but much faster than I normally do. And then when they stopped, I kept swinging right into power lines. What I feel happened, probably why I didn't get electrocuted, was I think the telephone line was first, and that's what the wires hit. So I didn't actually contact the power lines, but I mean, I could have easily died right there. The third time was on the stage. So we had this gimbal, which I had molded in the early part of the, pre-production. We had a mold, and it was connected to a steel square tube that goes right into the mold, and I put the costume on outside of it, and of course everything's painted blue and it's in front of a blue screen. But this gimbal is huge. It must have weighed thousands of pounds. You're like 10 feet up, and it was these metal frames with pins, and that would cause it to move this way, and then of course there were pins this way. So there was a series of kind of inner frames with pins so that I could articulate in all different directions for the flying sequences. Long story short, after we were done with that scene, whatever it was, I was able to, it takes like 20 minutes to get out of it. And as I'm walking away, one of the pins somehow slipped through or broke. I don't remember exactly. And the entire thing collapsed. It just boom and then boom. I would have probably taken my head off. I mean, I would have broken my neck and died if I'd been on there. Like, it had been 5 minutes, 3 minutes earlier, I would be dead. Anyway. So the point is, I went to the producers at some point later in the season, the second pickup, and I said, "Look, guys, I'm doing a lot of my own stunts. I'm playing 2 characters. I'm working all the time, and I had to do all this publicity stuff, which was a lot. And I, did Hollywood Squares. It was fun, some of it, but it was a lot of work, a lot of travel, and that was all for free. And I'm like, I'm making $2,500 a week, and I'm like, you guys, come on, let's do what's right here. I had a contract, but the 22-year-old immature, 23-year-old immature version of me felt like I needed to have more money to make it fair. So they said, yeah, we'll take care of it. They said, the Salkinds told me, we're gonna come up with the money. We'll figure it out. So cut to the end of the 13, and I'm like, okay, guys. So I go to the office, and I'm like, where's the money? And they're like, well, we don't have it. So I'm back to New York City, and they give me a pickup letter. They send it to my agency, and I'm like, I'm not going back. They promised more money, and they're like, well, they don't have it. So interesting things happened. So during the season, I received a moving violation. I was on private property doing some practice stunt work like a bonehead in some shopping center parking lot. There was no one around the area, and and of course I got a ticket, which they dropped because it was on private property. I still shouldn't have been doing it, but I would also zip around through the MGM studios on a motorized skateboard, not electric, a 2-stroke, gas-powered. I mean, I was just acting like a very immature kind of, which I was. And the thing is, I took a stand, and I'm like, I'm not going to come back. And they said, well, we don't have the money. One of the, how do I say this? I'll say one of the high executives at Viacom calls me in New York, and I don't know how they even got my number, because I was subletting someone's apartment that I didn't even really know. It was through a friend, but they got my number, and he calls me directly, and he says, hey, you got to come back. And I'm like, I feel strongly about this. And he's like, well, you're never going to work again. I was like, what? I was like, I'm so sorry, so-and-so, but I really feel strongly about this. He's like, well, we're not kicking in the money, and the Salkinds don't have the money, so you got to come back. I signed a contract. I should have gone back. And that is a regret that I have to this day, because that's not having integrity to have broken my contract. And I feel bad about it. I mean, I don't feel bad now, but it's one of those life regrets, But I held out, and I kept thinking they're going to come up with the money. They will. And they didn't. They recast. They hired somebody else, and I was out. I'm grateful that I was able to work after that. That wasn't the Viacom executive. They weren't able to keep me from working again, which I had that fear. But I did have a career after that. And of course now, I live in Colorado, and I'm a firefighter, and I have a company that I help people with chronic pain, stress, and addiction, and I work in hospitals and train doctors and therapists. I feel like I found my own superpower. Does that make sense? And it's a superpower we all have, right? It's to help our fellow human. And I love it. I feel like I'm better at it than I was as an actor, so there you go. But I just wanted to share that information. Hope you enjoy, and thank you. Thank you for your time.
It was honestly a real delight to be in communication with Newton, as he's a really nice guy and we got along really, really well. And I wish him nothing but happiness and the best of luck in the future. And look, despite the fact that his time with Superboy was cut short, he was still a successful actor, as he would go on to star in the movie Alive, as well as appear in many TV shows over the years, like Melrose Place, Desperate Housewives, and The Mentalist. So regardless, as far as his acting craft goes, he has had an amazing and successful journey. And his amazing journey continues now in a different direction, where he is now helping people in real life. So, to conclude, he is now on the path of a much more important journey. What an honour and privilege it's been to be communicating with John Newton. After all, truth be told, he was one of my childhood heroes. So it's been quite surreal, but also fascinating hearing his story. And considering some of the tales that are out there, I think it was important to get his voice out there and for him to speak and say how it was. And John Newton, despite being cut short from the Superboy TV show, is and always will be important, as he is and forever will be a chapter in the history of one of the greatest modern mythologies, Superman. Thank you for your efforts, John Newton. See ya!